Hi, I'm Craig the geologist, and I'm at one of my favorite places to go fossil collecting in the whole of the lower peninsula of Michigan, Rockport. Rockport Recreational Area is managed by the DNR and is treated like a state park basically, with the same rules for collecting. You're allowed to go in here. It is an old limestone quarry, and it is just a beautiful place. Come check it out with me. Rockport State Recreation Area is located just 15 minutes north of Alpena, Michigan, and it's just off of US 23, a couple of miles down a well-maintained dirt road. It's very easy to access. Any vehicle can make it there. As you can see, it's an absolutely beautiful location. It spans over 4,000 acres, about 300 of which are the quarry itself, where you want to be finding your fossils. Just next to the area where you park is Rockport's deep water harbor. This is where, in the 1950s and earlier, massive freighters would pull in and load up with limestone collected from the quarry, moved from that giant rock pile onto the ships themselves. Hi there. When you arrive at Rockport, your first inclination is to go straight for that giant rock pile. But, as I've said a couple of times now, the main feature is the quarry. It's a bit hidden, you can't see it from where you park, you gotta take a trail out there. But this is where you wanna go. I'm going to spend the whole day at this expansive location showing you around for this video. Now, as you can probably tell from that golden light splaying across the forest and the scarred landscape and illuminating those fantastic fall colors in the background, it's sunrise when I filmed this part. But when I arrived, it was just a little bit earlier. So let's go back in time. I'm going to start this by climbing to the top of the tailings pile behind me. You can see right over here, just above the trees. And I'm gonna set up the camera and try to catch the sunrise on this beautiful morning. Now it is cloudless pretty much everywhere except over the lake. I want to show you, this is what it looks like away from the lake. And don't get dizzy with me. Over the lake. We're lucky to have a horizon, but it's very often in the fall cloudy over the lake, even on a clear day. And this is a fun time to drop a little science on you about that. In the fall, as often happens when you approach winter, it gets cold, but the lake remains warm. The lake is what we call a heat sink. It has been absorbing heat all summer long. And so that surface water temperature is still in the realm of 50 degrees to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, when cold air travels over it, this morning it's about 37 degrees. Well, guess what? You have cold air moving over hot water, basically. You know, if you got in there, you wouldn't describe it as hot water. But compared to the air temperature, it is basically hot water. That water is about 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the air. So what happens when cold air moves over hot, warm water? Well, you have a lot of evaporation, and that hot, moist air then moves upward. Thermal convection, warm air tends to rise, cold air tends to sink, and you get clouds forming. And this is why in the fall you can have a beautiful, crisp, cloudless day, and then you go out to the beach and notice that it's cloudy over the water. What you're seeing here is a perfect example of that. Over the water, clouds. However, over the land, nothing at all. It can be frustrating when you're trying to get a video of a sunrise, but if you're able to see the horizon, it creates an even more beautiful sky. Let's go set up that camera. I want you to see exactly the kind of walk you can expect if you plan on going to the top of that tailings pile. So come along with me. Now, I have sped this video up in places because, let's face it, we've all got short attention spans. It is what it is, but I'll get you there a little bit faster. Long story short, I'm not running. This is a sped up video here. You know, I've been here like 3 dozen times in my life and somehow I've gone the wrong way. So as you can see, it is kind of easy to get turned around in here, but as you can hopefully also see, it's not really a big deal if you do. You're very close to the parking lot, you're next to a giant pile of rocks, and the trails are very wide. Now here, I am still speeding up this video at about 150% because I am going up a steep hill. I'm going kind of slow, and when this video is going at just normal speed, it looks like I'm crawling at snail's pace. Now don't you worry, there is a beautiful payoff at the top of this hill. I'm not just filming this for no reason at all. And it is a gorgeous view and well worth the trip up if you're physically able to do it. So most of the places I go, the tailings pile is where you want to be to find your good rocks. Here at Rockport, not so much. Atop the tailings pile, you get gorgeous views of the area. Absolutely spectacular. But the rocks themselves up here, well, I'm not going to say you can't find anything good. I will tell you, I myself have never found anything particularly interesting up here. And I don't know anyone who has. The real spot to go collecting is in the quarry. So you will be tempted to spend a lot of time searching this giant pile of rocks. And it is an enormous pile of rocks. But you're unlikely to find very much up here. And I'm not exactly sure the reason why. It may be that the limestone they were targeting wasn't very fossil rich. So maybe this stuff up here is the better quality limestone, but the less interesting limestone to us. I'm not exactly certain, but it is just a whole bunch of gray rock without a whole lot interesting going on in it. The views are beautiful in every direction, but the sides of this hill are very steep and they're very unstable, so please stay away from the edge. You won't find any interesting rocks down along those slopes, so it is not worth risking injury to go down there and look for anything. You will find abandoned mining equipment around. Unless you enjoy tetanus, just keep your distance from it. It's not particularly dangerous, but everything is rusty. I'm also unclear whether this is technically a tailings pile or not. Tailings piles are typically composed of waste rock, and I'm not certain that this is waste rock here because we are located next to a port. Rockport, as the name suggests, involves rocks in a port. It's the reason they built the limestone quarry here. They have a deep water harbor right off the shore here. So it seems very likely to me that this may have been a pile of rock that they intended to export. And then the quarry closed and it just got left here. But I don't know that. It would probably require a moderate amount of research to check that. And I haven't done that before making this video. I'm also roughly 100% certain that I set up my camera pointing the slightly wrong direction for the sunset and probably entirely missed it. Well, nobody's perfect. I try to prove that in every video. Oh, hey, look, there's the sunrise over there. Also, have I been calling it a sunset all morning? These early mornings do not suit me. All right, a few notes about this tailings pile as we come down it. If you're accustomed to hunting on tailings piles, climbing up this one will be no issue at all. There's a little trail that goes up it. However, if you're new to tailings piles, you might be surprised at how steep this little trail is that comes up here. So if you've got any mobility issues, don't come up here, or at least have someone who's very able-bodied help you on your way up. If you have severe mobility issues, please don't make the attempt. It's very steep and it's very easy to lose your footing and slide down, even on the trail. And on the untrailed sections, you know, where it's just pure slope, it hasn't been walked on, don't go up or down it because you're just begging for a fall and a broken ankle or at least a twisted ankle. It's very risky. And it's just not worth it because you're not going to find awesome rocks over here. The really awesome rocks are in the quarry itself. The trail out to the quarry from the parking lot is pretty easy. Never mind my long shadow, I'm not actually 25 feet tall. It is just very early in the morning. As you can see here, this is about the narrowest the trail gets on the way out to the quarry. We're going to join up with what used to be an old road and is now just a very wide trail. Once you get to the quarry itself, there are some trails going in there, but generally you can wander off on your own as long as you don't get yourself lost. So bring a phone with the GPS, Google Maps on it. Make sure you're able to get out pretty conveniently, because I have gotten turned around in there. And you know, it's not like being lost in the woods. You're not gonna wander around for hours hopelessly, but if you're trying to get back to your car and you don't want to be confused for 20 minutes, bring a phone with GPS. Now I planned on showing you the full walk out to the quarry, maybe speeding it up like I did on our trip up to the top of the tailings pile, but it resulted in a video that was just long enough to not be interesting. So instead, here's some highlights from the way out there, and it's about a 6 or 7 minute walk, maybe 10 or 12 minutes if you're real slow. Now, if you're just going to the quarry, this will be your best way in. If you keep going further, you'll find yourself with water on either side of the trail. Unless you want to walk through knee-deep water, this is the way to go in. Kind of turns back the way you came somewhat, but don't worry about the backtracking. This is the correct way in. You will pass a couple of fire pits where teenagers have had their parties. And you'll follow this path. Don't get nervous about it. Look at a little overgrown. This is the path you want. Now you're going across the swampy section. It's always a little bit wet over here, but last night we got 2 inches of rain, so it's certainly extra wet right now. And then you're going to go up over that ridge and you will magically appear in the quarry. Now, I used to host events out here, collecting tours, and perhaps I will again one day, although the DNR is really hard to work with out here. But I love to pause here. Before we even go in, I ask people, have you ever collected any fossils or any crinoid stems? Have you ever been able to find a crinoid stem? And there's always a few people like, no, I've always wanted to find crinoid stems, but I've never been able to. Well, on this path in, you just got to look at the mud beneath your feet. Let's have a look. Mixed into the mud are countless crinoid fossils. I really hope you're able to see them in this video, but they are absolutely everywhere. You're walking over them as you make your way in. Some small discs, some stalks. That little twiggy piece there, that is an entire stalk. Look at that little tiny seashell there, right in the center. You're looking at an ancient seafloor here, and we're walking across it. And this whole path in, is just littered with crinoid stems. You can stoop over, pick up as much as you want. You'll never get them all. Now, the entire quarry isn't like this. You're not going to see 100 and something acres of crinoid fossil dirt. But this path in is a great place. Just pick up a few loose crinoid fossils. Let's have a look over here. What do we see on the ground over here? Lots of them. And it's all over. Now, this little swampy section that's full of crinoid fossils goes back this way a bit. And I've never really explored, well, if I can control my camera, I've never really explored all the way back there. But I imagine if you want to find several 100,000 more of these things, you can just continue your way back there. But the way into the quarry is up the steep slope. It's a very short climb, but it's a steep climb. And you'll magically appear in the quarry. Let's go do that. Let's see. Looks like some people who were annoyed with muddy shoes laid out some rocks to try to walk across on. It's not deep enough to get my ankles wet, but it will certainly get my feet mucky. Here we go. And now up that steep path. And voila, You are in the quarry. Now the quarry has been inactive for more than 70 years, I believe. And so there are trees growing all throughout it. Not a true forest, but it's trying to become one. From here you can follow some of the trails. You can get off the trails and go wherever you like out here. There are these ridges of rock that were bulldozed out when the quarry was in operation. And so those can be a little bit tricky to traverse. Now you might be thinking, well, if I want to find good stuff, I don't want to get the picked over material right where everyone else is. I want to walk all the way across the quarry, get as far away from everyone else as possible. Well, I understand that impulse. That's what I'm inclined to do when I come. But the very nicest piece I ever saw anyone collect was on one of those fossil collecting tours I hosted. And the kid was about this far in, maybe 20 feet into the quarry, about 6 inches off the side of the trail, just picking through the rocks. And he found an armored fish plate. It was absolutely amazing. It's what I am going to try to find today. It's what I try to find every time I'm here now. I did not know they could be found realistically by people. I'd heard they've been found here, but you know, you'll never find one. Well, apparently you can. And that was just barely into this quarry. So if you have mobility issues, feel free to stop right at the edge of the quarry and look around. You will find basically the same stuff that you will in every other corner without having to walk an extra mile or two across broken rocks. Well, let's walk into the quarry and start exploring it. And I hope this aerial shot provides a sense of just how massive this landscape is, as well as how scarred it is, and what an amazing collecting opportunity this place presents. Because as I walk across this barren landscape, almost a moonscape, except for all the trees, every third rock is a fossil I'm walking across. Every single boulder you see here contains fossils in it. There is an infinite supply of rocks and fossils at this location. It is absolutely spectacular in that regard. Now, the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that the lighting has changed significantly since the previous clip. There's a reason for that. After arriving at the quarry and explaining a few things, I then continued on along the trail for a couple of miles, filmed at some beautiful sinkholes, and then made my way back. That means a couple of hours have elapsed since the last segment, and the sun has changed its position pretty significantly. It may also explain why I look a little bit tired and disheveled in some of these clips, because as fit as I am, hiking a half dozen miles before 10 a.m. kind of takes it out of me, and that's what I've done at this point already. So why did I slice and dice this footage and remove the sinkhole segment? Well, that is actually going into the next video. This is going to be a two-part video about Rockport because it's such an amazing, large, and interesting location. So inside the quarry here, you'll be hard pressed to go more than a couple of dozen feet without seeing a fossil. They're pretty much everywhere. There are a few sections where you might go a little ways without spotting something, but I want to show you just how common the fossils are around here. So let's just have a look. Set my bag down here We'll look in a little, 20 foot by 20 foot area and see what we can find here. So I'm in an area here that's especially abundant in stromatoporoid fossils. Stromatoporoids are ancient fossil sponges, we believe, but they were reef-building organisms. They were entire stromatoporoid reefs. I would wager that this is what we're on right now, because all around me here are stromatoporoid fossils. And you can see it because they form these concentric ring-like structures building outwards. This one's kind of faint and hard to see, but we'll see a lot more here. Here's another one right here. See those concentric rings? In fact, when you start looking, almost all of these have those concentric rings building outward. These stromatoporoid sponges grew layer by layer outward. Over here, we've got a round structure, but that does not look like stromatoporoid. That is coral. And based on the very small size of the tubular structures, which I'm not a paleontologist, I don't know the proper name. I'm going to say it's probably a Charlevoix variety of Favicides. Oh, here's a very nice stromatoporoid. This is a beauty. Take a look at this. That might go in my bag and come with me. So stromatoporoids have these very lumpy surfaces. They're lumpy because these were actually spines that grew outwards. But we don't think the spines were for defense. We think the spines were structural. They put the spines out and then used those spines as scaffolding that they built their next layer of sponge on. And so the spines kept growing outwards, and as they grew outward, they would grow another layer of sponge. And you see all those layers of sponge right in there. This is the beauty of a piece here. It's awfully heavy. I don't know if I really want to take that home. I'll put it by my bag. I'll make a decision later. Meanwhile, by my bag, we got more stromatoporoid fossils. I'll set it up here for later. But all around it here, is another stromatoporoid fossil there. I think it is. Over here we got some bryozoan fossils in here. Yeah, these kind of looking a bit like morel mushrooms buried in there. But those were organisms, animals that built stalk-like structures. They still exist today. But yeah, see all this is chock-loaded with bryozoans here. And move that stromatoporoid out of the way. You see more of that material all in here. All over here. What do we have over here? Looks like we got some large bryozoans in here. Beneath that, a layer of stromatoporoid fossil. Here's just a little sheet of a top layer of a stromatoporoid. Well, I've only moved about 5 feet from where we started. Let's have a look over here. This would be Petoskey stone. Very, very, very rough Petoskey stone. Not the kind of thing you could run through a tumbler. But that's a hexagonaria coral. Oh, right next to a large structure of bryozoa. I don't know if that's a single bryozoan or a cluster of them all growing together. Beautiful. Here's another bryozoan. These kind of look like fish scales, but they are not fish scales. This is a lattice work style bryozoan called, I believe, Phenestella. Future voiceover Craig, is that Phenestella? Maybe, but Phenestella tends to be more branching. This is more likely to be polypora. Don't be too hard on yourself, past Craig. Fossils are hard. What else have we got in this little area right here? And because the fossils are so wildly abundant out here, I can't film everything I see. No one wants to watch a 7-hour video. I don't want to make a 7-hour video. But there's just great stuff absolutely everywhere. Here's a side cut of a Petoskey stone. This is a hexagonaria coral. It would have been anchored to the seafloor down here and grown upward. And on the top, see if we can get this in good lighting. Come on. Come on, behave. There we go. You're gonna see those hexagonal coralites, I believe they're called. The hexagonal structures on the surface there. So this is a pretty big piece. I don't know about running that through a tumbler. But this is a very big, very rough Petoskey stone. This stuff is just all over out here. We've got Petoskey reefs, stromatolite reefs, favosites reefs. We've got bryozoans. Here we've got a layer of shale, or very shaly limestone, not sure which. It looks, I think I'd call that shale. But you see these bryozoan fossils all just stuck in there. You can see all the layers of mud they were buried around. I see countless more stromatoporoid fossils. You don't get very many stromatolite fossils. There is a lot of stromatolite out here, but they tend to form very muddy layers. They tend to be muddy algae, so you don't tend to find really beautiful stromatolite fossils. Your layered fossils are mostly stromatoporoid out here. Where you get stromatolites here, they might end up looking a little bit more like that. Not very pretty, not very collectible. I'm not even 100% sure that's stromatolite. I'm really not a paleontologist. I'm a geologist, but my background is in exploding rocks and underground processes and groundwater and geochemistry. Quite a bit of coverage on that, but fossils and ancient life aren't part of it. Here we go. We see a coral structure coming out of the side of the rock there. And how far have I traveled from my bag to find all that? Yeah, not very far. There's a lot of amazing stuff out here. Some of it's very easy to collect. Huh, how about this? Right there, got a piece of horn coral. It just came right out of the rock there. Didn't even need to hit it with a hammer. Over here we got some more bryozoan fossils. Over here we got a very rough and interesting looking Petoskey stone coral, hexagonaria. And another one right over there. I'm not going to bother picking it up because they're all over out here. Well, down here we got some lumpy surfaces for some stromatoporoids. There's some right here. This probably fell off of that at some point. Oh, right next to the Petoskey stone. So, you know, this was in a, 10 foot by 20 foot area, 200 square feet. And this whole quarry is how many hundreds of acres? It's, there's a lot of fossils out here. You will find fossils. It's impossible not to find fossils. Now, it does help to know what you're looking for. Know how to recognize those funky bryozoans. Know how to look for the crinoids and the various coral varieties and stromatoporoids. Also, there are armored fish plates out here to be found. I've never found one myself, but it's always my goal every time I come out here to find one. And trilobites. I've never found a trilobite in my life. I'm about 20 years overdue for finding a trilobite. I'm kind of cursed with trilobites. But one day, if I keep putting myself out there, I will find one. Even if I'm trilobite blind, at some point I've got to accidentally stumble on one. I've probably watched a half dozen people find them out here and haven't found one myself. All right, let's travel a little bit. All right, well, I've only moved a few feet from the last video, but over here you see a stromatoporoid. That's not what I'm showing off here. This layered rock looks a bit different. This might be what our stromatolites look like out here. Let's pick that up. You see that red in there? That's rust. There is pyrite that rusts out in some of these. Oh, that's so well formed though. After picking it up, I'm less convinced that's stromatolite. But you do get pyrite out here, but usually it's rusted out and not very pretty. Oh yeah, see, here we go. We got these ring structures. All right, that's a stromatoporoid. So never mind about that. I just found another stromatoporoid. Stupid stromatoporoids tricking me and making me look like an idiot in front of my audience. Well, here's something you do find out here quite a bit, actually. You find it all across the state of Michigan. You get a lot of it out here in this area, but it tricks a lot of people into thinking that it's petrified wood. It does look woody, doesn't it? But it's not wood. This is what we call stylolites. Stylolites come from the Greek word for column and rock. Stylos, column, light, rock. Stylolites form by a process called pressure dissolution, where instead of it dissolving due to water running through it, it's the intense pressure of all the overlying rock on it that causes the rock to dissolve, and it dissolves downward, forming these vertical columns. Rockport is actually one of the best places in the state, if not the nation, to find stylolites. We'll hopefully see more of these out here. Well, let's travel on a bit further and make our way more towards the back of the quarry. Now, as we make our way back, you'll notice more and more water on the ground. Rockport Quarry always has a certain amount of water in it. Though the day before filming this, we got about 2 or 3 inches of rain. So there's certainly more water in the quarry at this time than there typically is, at least during the dry season. The presence of these large ponds or lakes or whatever you want to call them, they're only about knee deep, but their presence means you've got to plan your route accordingly. You can't always just take a straight line path to wherever you want to go. Sometimes you got to pick and choose the way you travel. So Rockport Quarry was an active limestone quarry off and on from the 1910s until the 1950s. Generally, the quality of the limestone was considered to be too poor for use in concrete and a lot of other common applications. Hence, it has a complicated history of being bought, opening up, quarrying, closing down, being sold, being reopened, being shut down, being sold, being reopened. The most famous use of Rockport's limestones was as the base structure of the Mackinac Bridge. Beneath the supports for the Mackinac Bridge, it all rests on quarried out limestone from Rockport right here. So good for you, Rockport Limestone. And no, that's not just a nickname. There is actually a geological unit called the Rockport Limestone named for this quarry right here. All of the rocks you'll find in Rockport come from the Travis Group Formation, which is a collection of units, most famous for being the home to Petoskey fossils, which shouldn't come as a surprise to you considering how many Petoskey's we've already looked at here. Their age is Middle Devonian. That means they're just a little bit younger than 400 million years old. And so young is really a relative term here. At the time, Michigan was tropical. It was located near the equator, and this whole area would have been underwater, as you might have guessed from the numerous corals and other aquatic fossils we're finding here. The whole region would have been a very shallow ocean, maybe more akin to the modern day Caribbean. And in that shallow, warm ocean, you would have had violent storms and very vibrant, flourishing tropical reef communities. There would have also been tropical islands, but keep in mind that at this time, there are almost no land plants and there are no land animals. And so if you're looking for a beautiful place to vacation on a tropical island, you're just looking at a pile of sand and rocks. So I set my bag down along the back wall for a minute to look around, took a quick 1 mile walk, a little bit less burdened by all my heavy gear. I found what I was looking for, but thought I'd show a few of the things that were just lying around next to my bag. This little Petoskey stone down there. Over here we have a lot of shales and shaly limestones. But mixed in with all of those are countless little horn corals. You come up here and see some more. Got some here in this one. And over here, this guy's got some good sized horn corals mixed in with its layers. All these horn corals are lying on their side because all of them were knocked over during storms. In fact, these muddy limestones tell us that the water was churning pretty violently at times. Whether or not it's a muddy limestone because of all the storm deposits, or whether it's muddy because it was near to shore and receiving river sediments, I don't know. But these horn corals are super abundant in the shales here. The clouds have set in. The sun has moved across the sky. We're into the afternoon now. And my time here is going to have to draw to a close pretty soon, even though there's a lot more I wish I could show you. But I've got to coach my son's soccer team in a couple of hours and I got to drive home. Let's see what I can find to show you before we end this video. Oh, it looks like there's a school up ahead where I'm about to film. I've shown a few Petoskey stone corals, but how about the Favosites Charlevoix variety? You do get those out here as well. Also looking highly textured, very detailed. There's one right here. You may hear some background noise. There is a school full of what sounds like fairly out of control children out here. Oh, well, I didn't turn that off quite yet. Here's a random horn coral, just sitting there, very fragmentary. Nice. And these fossils are just absolutely everywhere out here. Every step you take, you're walking on them. Walk 2 feet. Look at the beautiful texture on that stromatoporoid right there. That surface on there, that diagnostic, lumpy surface. Classic stromatoporoid. Oh, right next to another one right there. And oh, what we got here? We got some Petoskey, some Hexagnaria coral right there. not cold. Excuse my accent and my exhaustion, apparently. And I'm going to stop filming as I approach the kids because I do not want to deal with consent forms. So I've realized only now, as the day draws to a close and I've only done about half of what I set out to do today, that I was trying to bite off more than I could chew. Hindsight is 20/20. My goal today was to give you a thorough tour of Rockport and to give you an in-depth look at all the rocks and particularly the fossils here. But I now realize that's a 2-day job and probably a 2 or 3 or 4-part video. So I hope you enjoyed the tour of Rockport today. And how about this? How about next year in the spring, I come back out here, I plop my butt down on the rocks, film myself cracking them open, show you each fossil, really describe what we're looking at, the diagnostic features, how to identify them, and tell you a little bit about life 300 million years ago. The exact type of environment that was out here, the ecosystem. We know what the weather was like. We know what the seasons were like. We know quite a lot. So let's do that next year. Until then, good luck with your rock hounding. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.